الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبع هداه. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Today, inshallah, we're going to talk about a very important topic. We're going to talk about fasting and sincerity, fasting and ikhlas, and how fasting nurtures sincerity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran said, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى حتى تعلموا ما تقولون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "O you who have believed, do not approach prayer while you are intoxicated until you know what you are saying and what you're doing." Sure. While this verse, dear brothers and sisters, refers to the importance of consciousness and concentration and sincerity in prayer, it also reflects to a broader principle of sincerity in all actions. Fasting as an act of worship requires sincerity in both the intention and the practice. It is about having a pure heart that seeks only the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Ibn Qayyim in his great book Madarij al-Salikin explains that ikhlas, sincerity, is the cornerstone, is the cornerstone of all acts of worship. Fasting more than any other act nurtures this sincerity. Why? Because it is an act done in secret, purely for the sake of Allah. No one can observe whether a person is fasting or not, which makes it an opportunity for the worshipper to refine their intention and remove any traces of riya, showing off. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said in the Qudsi hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Fasting is for me and I will reward it. It is an act of worship that is between me," it means between Allah and my servant. Hadith narrated in Sahih Imam Bukhari and Muslim. This hadith reveals the unique nature of fasting. It is an act that is done privately, where only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the sincerity behind it. Unlike other acts of worship such as prayer, where people may see you, fasting is an internal struggle and a test of sincerity. Ibn al-Qayyim further elaborates that fasting is one of the greatest ways to purify the heart from the diseases of insincerity. When a person fasts, they are able to suppress the desires of the body, focusing their energy on worship and devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This struggle helps to cleanse the heart from impurities like pride and showing off, leading to a stronger connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Actions are judged by intentions, and every person will get what they intended." Hadith narrated in Bukhari and Imam Muslim. This well-known famous hadith reminds us that sincerity, ikhlas in fasting, begins with the niyyah, the intention. Fasting with a sincere intention to seek Allah's pleasure purifies the heart and allows the individual to attain true closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Without this sincerity, dear brothers and sisters, even a complete fast may not have its full reward. So fasting also acts as a means to overcome the nafs. The nafs is the lower self. The nafs often drives individuals to seek worldly pleasures and desires. During fasting, a person's desires are controlled, and this struggle nurtures sincerity by focusing by what? By focusing the individual on what? On their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam al-Qayyim as well said, the nafs is purified by fasting. And the heart is nurtured by sincerity. Fasting that fasting cultivates. Through this purification, fasting helps the believer align their actions more closely with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Salaf, may Allah have mercy on them, or early generations of this ummah, had a profound understanding of the rule of sincerity, ikhlas in fasting. Imam Al-Hasan Al-Basri, may Allah have mercy on him, said, fasting is not just about abstaining from food and drink. It is about abstaining from desires, and it is a means of purifying the heart. This highlights that fasting is a multifaceted act of worship, where the outward act while the outward act of refraining from food and drink is coupled with the inward struggle to maintain sincerity. In the modern world that we live in now, where the pursuit of approval and recognition is often sought, fasting offers a unique opportunity to purify one's heart and motives. In a society driven by materialism and social media, fasting serves as a reminder that the ultimate purpose of every action is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. A scholar, may Allah have mercy on him, said, fasting is the foundation of sincerity. Fasting is the foundation of sincerity, as it is an act that removes the possibility of showing off. No one can know if you are fasting except for Allah. This reflection calls for us to check our intention regularly during Ramadan and beyond, ensuring that all our acts of worship are done with sincere devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So today's practical guidance and tips from this lesson: we have to check our intention regularly. Before fasting each day, we have to renew our intention to fast purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and reflect on our actions and ask ourselves if our actions or our acts of worship are done with sincerity. We have to try avoid showing off. Fasting should be done quietly and without seeking praise or recognition from others. We have to keep it between ourselves and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to purify our hearts. We have to use fasting as a means to purify our hearts from pride, arrogance, and the desire for attention. We have to reflect on how we can improve our sincerity in all actions, not just fasting. We have to struggle against the nafs. During fasting, recognize that we are fighting against our desires for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is an opportunity to develop true sincerity and overcome the temptations of the nafs. We have to maintain sincerity in other acts of worship. Let the sincerity that we cultivate during fasting carry over into other acts of worship like prayer and charity and remembrance of Allah. نفعنا الله تعالى وإياكم بما سمعنا, and see you inshallah in another video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.